You open your phone one morning, and the government has posted UFO files online. No clearance required, no request forms, just a website. That sentence alone should sound strange to you. For most of American history, the government's answer to, "What do you know about UFOs?" was silence, or a shrug, or a folder marked classified. So what changed? In May 2026, the Department of War began publishing declassified records on unidentified anomalous phenomena, the modern term for what used to be called UFOs. The effort has a name, PURSUE, the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. The first release included reports, photographs, videos, witness accounts, and even transcripts from Apollo missions. Some of the material dates back to the 1940s. Have you ever wondered what it actually feels like to read a government document about something nobody can explain? Here's what's real. The files include an Apollo 17 photograph, one the government flagged itself, showing 3 points of light above the lunar terrain that mission analysts could not immediately identify. They include a report from the Indo-Pacific Command, describing a football-shaped object near Japan. They include witness accounts collected from ordinary Americans going back decades, alongside military mission reports from as recently as 2023. One entry, dated June 5, 2026, comes from Dr. John Kozlowski, the director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, describing what witnesses called an orange mother orb, launching smaller red orbs near a military facility. That's a real title, a real office, and a real document. What it means is still argued over. To understand why this release matters, you have to go back further. In 1952, the Air Force launched Project Blue Book, a formal study of UFO sightings that ran until 1969. Over 17 years, investigators logged more than 12,000 reports. Most were explained as aircraft, weather balloons, or natural phenomena. A small fraction were not. When Blue Book closed, the government's public position hardened into something close to dismissal. For decades, that was the story. Nothing to see. Case closed. But was it? In 2021, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence published something that cracked that story open. An unclassified assessment of 144 UAP incidents reported by military personnel. Of those 144 cases, 143 remained unexplained. Not because they were secretly alien, because nobody could say for certain what they were. The following year, Congress created the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, specifically to investigate these cases with more rigor than the military had ever applied before. Notice the name change. Not unidentified flying objects. Not even UFOs. Anomalous phenomena. The shift in language tells you something about how seriously this is now being treated inside the government. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's a bureaucratic mandate. The PURSUE files are the latest chapter. As of June 2026, 3 batches have been released on May 8th, May 22nd, and June 12th. The third batch alone contained 53 documents, 10 images, 6 videos, and 3 audio recordings pulled from the CIA, the FBI, NASA, and the Pentagon. According to the Department of War's own accounting, roughly 40% of the reported incidents in these files remain unresolved. Sit with that number for a second. 40%. Not explained as balloons, not explained as drones. Just unresolved. Now, here's where you have to be careful, because this is exactly where a story like this can run away from the facts. The documents themselves do not claim contact with extraterrestrial life. AARO's own reviews, going back years, have not concluded that any case is extraterrestrial in origin. The files show strange lights, unexplained radar returns, an object that appears and vanishes. They do not show proof of anything beyond Earth. Some researchers believe the pattern of unexplained cases points to something genuinely novel in the sky. Others argue it more likely reflects the limits of sensor technology, classified aircraft testing, or simple misidentification, magnified by better cameras and more attention than ever before. Both of those are honest readings of the same evidence. Nobody has settled which one is right. Consider what a document like that actually looks like in practice. It isn't a photograph of a flying saucer. It's usually a memo, a radar log with a timestamp, a transcript of a pilot describing what their instruments recorded and what their eyes saw, and noting when the two didn't match. Declassification doesn't hand you a conclusion. It hands you raw material, the kind analysts have been sitting with for years, and lets you draw your own line between strange and explained. That's a very different thing from a leak, and it's a very different thing from a cover-up being cracked open. It's closer to a government finally showing its homework. Why release any of this now? Part of the answer is political. In February 2026, the President directed the Department of War to begin identifying and releasing files connected to UAPs, modeling the process on a similar declassification effort used for other long-sealed government records. Part of the answer is legislative. A UAP Disclosure Act, modeled in part on the framework used for JFK assassination documents, has been gaining bipartisan momentum in Congress, with lawmakers on both sides pushing for continued transparency. And part of the answer might be cultural. Public appetite for these files has been building for years, ever since the Navy released cockpit footage of pilots encountering objects that outmaneuvered anything in the U.S. arsenal. What's easy to miss in all of this is how ordinary the process now looks. No shadowy leak, no whistleblower risking a career, just a government website, updated on a rolling basis with more files promised. That alone is a kind of answer to a question people have been asking for 80 years. Not are they real, but will the government ever just tell us what it has? For the first time in a long while, the answer looks like yes, at least in part. So the next time you scroll past a story about a mysterious light in the sky, remember there's now a paper trail behind it. Somewhere in a government archive is a case number, a redacted witness name, an analyst who looked at a bright object over the horizon and wrote down, honestly, that they didn't know what it was. Consider the drone operator mentioned in the files, interviewed by the FBI after spotting a bright light over a test site. Their name redacted not to hide a conspiracy but to protect an ordinary person who happened to see something odd on an ordinary shift. Consider the Navy aviators who, back in 2022, told a congressional subcommittee about an object that outran their own aircraft with no visible means of propulsion, on the record, under oath, without ever claiming to know what it was. None of these people are conspiracy theorists. They're pilots, analysts, and drone operators doing their jobs, writing down what they observed, and trusting the paperwork to eventually catch up with the public. That uncertainty used to live in classified vaults. Now it lives in a browser tab you can open yourself. You didn't need clearance to read this story. You just needed to ask the right question.
If your brain enjoyed this, do all three. Hit subscribe, smash like, and turn notifications on so you can watch next.